High Commissioner, President, Secretary-General, Excellencies, distinguished representatives. 2025 marks the 80th anniversary of the Charter of the United Nations. The Charter commits all member states to work cooperatively to solve international challenges. It commits us all to respect, promote and protect human rights and fundamental freedoms for all, irrespective of where we were born, our race, our gender or our religion. No state is above fair scrutiny. And in 2024, Australia welcomed visits from the Special Rapporteurs for Myanmar, privacy and contemporary forms of slavery. Together, we must continue to strengthen the multilateral human rights system and protect the principles it's built on: universality, indivisibility and non-discrimination. As home to one of the oldest enduring cultures on the planet, Australia welcomes Indigenous peoples' increased participation in the work of the Council. Pacific Islands countries are also essential in shaping the system to ensure that it serves the needs of small island states. The world faces enormous challenges, including the largest number of conflicts since World War II. And Australia welcomes the announcement of a ceasefire and hostage agreement in Gaza and urges all parties to respect its terms and for all phases of the deal to be implemented in full. We want to see the enormous suffering in Gaza alleviated, civilians protected and all the hostages released. 3 years into Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, we continue to see Russia's blatant disregard for its international humanitarian law and international human rights law obligations. The deployment of thousands of North Korean troops to fight alongside Russian forces is a dangerous escalation of Russia's illegal and immoral invasion of Ukraine. We reiterate our calls on Russia to adhere to its obligation under international human rights law and international humanitarian law and put an end to its senseless war. Human rights underpin peace and security and are critical for realising the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Yet human rights violations continue. Australia remains gravely concerned by the human rights violations against Uyghurs, Tibetans and other minorities in Xinjiang, Tibet and across China, as well as the erosion of rights and freedoms in Hong Kong. Australia continues to call on China to address the credible findings of UN experts, including the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. The sustained and systemic oppression of women and girls in Afghanistan by the Taliban is a deplorable attempt to erase them from public life. This is why Australia, together with partners, has commenced international action against Afghanistan for violations of the CEDAW Convention. And we call on Afghanistan to reverse its egregious decisions and practices restricting the human rights of women and girls. 2024 was the deadliest year on record for humanitarian personnel. And Australia, together with partners, established the Ministerial Group for the Protection of Humanitarian Personnel. This group is driving work on a new declaration open to all member states to reinforce international humanitarian law and drive action to protect the lives and human rights of humanitarian personnel in conflict zones. Australia will continue to advocate for the global abolition of the death penalty. We remain deeply disturbed by Iran's extensive and persistent use of the death penalty, including for women and girls, juvenile offenders, political opponents, protesters, and ethnic and religious minorities. Climate change is the single greatest shared threat to all countries. Australia remains deeply concerned about the detrimental effects of climate change on human rights, including the acute impacts on Pacific nations. We recognise the leadership of the Pacific in driving global climate action and are partnering with the Pacific in our bid to deliver a COP in 2026 that brings profile to the region's unique challenges, elevates Pacific voices, and accelerates global action on climate. The challenges are many. We cannot work in isolation. The multilateral human rights system depends on the commitment from all states to work together to realise a just, inclusive and peaceful world that respects the human rights of all.